So today we're going to be talking about ratios. So I'm looking at a newspaper and I'm looking at some ratios here. In this case, the ratio that we're going to be going over is ratio of prisoners to different races. So for the first one, we're going to be talking about African American men. Okay. So African American men, every 30 out of every 30 African American men, 2 are in prison, according to the statistics in this newspaper, which, some people might say could be misleading, but just looking at the statistics, that's what it is. For Hispanics, the ratio is for every 108 Hispanics, 3 are in prison. And then lastly, the other racial group we're going to be talking about is whites. So for whites, every 424 whites, there are 4 in prison. So ratios, you're comparing two quantities. All right, you're looking at two expressions and you're comparing different quantities. So in this left side, we have the general population. So general population, we'll abbreviate that. So this group is the general population of African American men, Hispanics, and whites. This other group that we're talking about here is prisoners. So out of that group, these are the number of prisoners here. So those are the two quantities that we're comparing. The general population of these 3 racial groups to the prison population, and comparing those quantities. Now, if we're trying to compare African Americans, Hispanics, and whites, it's a little tougher getting a clear picture because you have 30 to 2 ratio for African American men, 108 to 3 ratio for Hispanics, and 424 to 4 for whites. But if we have a ratio to 1 for every 1 prisoner, it might be a little easier. And just so we're clear, this is how you could write it as well. So I think you heard me say 30 to 2. So this could also be written as 30 to 2, 108 to 3, and 424 to 4. So that's another way you could write the ratio. You could write it with the semicolon, you could write it with the letter 2, and then you could also write it as a fraction. We could write the African American ratio 30 to 2 ratio. We could write Hispanics as 108 to 3 ratio, and the whites 424 to 4 ratio. So to get a clear look at these, we're going to actually reduce these fractions. Alright, so I actually rewrote it how I originally had it with the semicolon, just because I think it would be easier to reduce. So there are 1, 2, 3 different ways we could write ratios, but let's reduce all of these ratios so that we're talking about how many of the general population is there to every 1 prisoner in each racial group. So the first one, 30 to 2, we want to reduce this 2 into 1. So if we go 2 divided by 2, we get 1. And then you would divide 30 by 2. 30 divided by 2 is 15. So for every 15 African American men, 1, according to the statistics, are in prison. And then if you look at Hispanics, if we reduce that, 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 108 divided by 3 is 36. So for every 36 Hispanic males, 1 is in prison, according to the statistics. And then lastly, let's take a look at the white ratio of prisoners. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 424 divided by 4 is 106. So for this one, every 106 white males, 1 is in prison. So this gives us a better idea of what we're looking at. Let's see if we can interpret this. So for every 15 black males, 1 is in prison, while 36, so almost double for Hispanics, every 36, well, more than double, 36 prisoners, 36 Hispanic males, 1 is in prison. But this is the issue that you have in a lot of newspapers and articles when they present these statistics, because these numbers are so different, and there's such a overrepresentation in certain groups according to races. So this just gives you a better idea of how to analyze ratios, understand ratios, and next time you see ratios or percentages in the newspaper, you get a better idea of what that looks like. And my next video, we'll talk about how ratios and percentages are interconnected. Okay?